Good morning, one and all. It's a bit stormy outside here in the UK at the moment, but I hope things are safe and sound where you are and you're in good health. November the 2nd, on our theme of growing in grace, is the gospel itself. Now, people try to summarise what the gospel is. Let's base our comments this morning on Romans chapter 3, and I'll be using the J.B. Phillips New Testament translation from some years ago. It's a handy translation. In Romans 3 verse 24, it says, "Under this divine system, a man who has faith is now freely acquitted in the eyes of God by his generous dealings in the redemptive act of Jesus Christ." Now, isn't that just something? Freely acquitted? Let's go down to the brass tacks, as it were, the basic meaning. And now I'll go back to the literal reading in J.B. Phillips, but we'll take it up just from verse 20 and 21. "No man can justify himself before God." We'll come back to the word justification in a moment. "By a perfect performance of the law's demands. Indeed, it is the straight edge of the law that shows us how crooked we are. But now we are seeing the righteousness of God declared quite apart from the law, though amply testified to by both law and prophets. Note, it is a right relationship given to and operating in all who have faith in Jesus Christ." So here is Jesus Christ. He is the one that perfectly, fully obeyed God's requirements, whereas we obviously fail. Now, notice, I'll read on verse 22 and 23, and we notice where faith comes in. "For there is no distinction to be made anywhere. Everyone has sinned. Everyone falls short of the beauty of God's plan. A man who has faith is now freely acquitted in the eyes of God by his generous dealing in the redemptive act of Christ." Those are the words we introduce this piece with. Now, underlining then is the idea of faith in Jesus received by grace, not by our performance. And that moves us to abandon any trust in our own goodness, but rest on Him instead. The gospel in shares really helps me visualize the gospel in just a couple of minutes. Now, all you need to do is go on YouTube, not Google, but YouTube, and just enter in the gospel chair, or chairs. And you'll find a number of presentations there. There's one 3 minutes long that is quite succinct. I'll just go back to the J.B. Phillips, verses 24 onwards. "God has appointed him, Jesus, as the means of propitiation accomplished by the shedding of his blood, to be received and made effective in ourselves by faith. God has done this to demonstrate his righteousness, both by the wiping out of the sins of the past, the time when he withheld his hand, and by showing in the present that he is a just God and that he justifies every man who has faith in Jesus." Justifies. This means not only to be declared not guilty, that's only half the gospel. "Oh, I'm forgiven, I'm free," that's only half the gospel. But also being positively declared righteous by virtue of being in Christ. Romans 8:1 might help us there. And Galatians 2:20 for that matter. But hey, in your own time. I've just finished with the story. Simple story. Showing the negative, I'm not guilty, and the positive, I'm now owned. I'm now loved unconditionally and given his righteousness. Okay. The story is told of an orphan boy trapped in a bedroom of a blazing house. He was rescued by a man climbing an iron drain pipe. The boy hung tightly to the man's neck as he was carried down to safety. Weeks later, a public hearing was held to determine who would receive custody. A farmer, a teacher, and a wealthy citizen all gave their reasons why they should look after him. Then a stranger walked to the front and slowly took his hands from his pockets, revealing severe scars from burns. The boy cried out in recognition of his rescuer and threw his arms around the man's neck and held on for dear life. The other men silently walked away. Those marred hands, like the hands of our rescuer, Jesus Christ, have settled the issue. Not only rescued us from the fire, but taken us to himself as family. What's the lesson for today? Preach the full, true gospel to yourself every day. Thanks for listening. Till tomorrow.